Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely magical. We're going to explore how to communicate incredibly complex ideas, convey deep emotion, and tell entire, captivating stories without uttering a single syllable. We're unpacking the fascinating world of MIME, digging into the exact techniques and the core philosophies that let performers build invisible realities right before our eyes.
All right, to kick things off, I want you to picture this. You're at this highly formal, super important event, and absolute silence is required. Then, suddenly it hits you. You left your umbrella outside with a friend before walking in. You're stuck right in the middle of the hall. You literally cannot walk out, but you spot your friend over by the entrance. So how do you ask them to grab your umbrella using nothing but your physical actions? How do you convey umbrella, outside, and bring it here through the air? That immediate instinct you just felt, that sudden urge to use your hands in your face, well, that is the exact core of what we're dissecting today.
Okay, here is our syllabus of silence for today. We'll hit the power of silence, the MIME's toolkit, the rules of illusion, elements of performance, and wrap up with a universal language. Let's jump right in.
Starting off with Section 1, the power of silence.
You know, the legendary French artist Marcel Marceau really hit the nail on the head when he talked about this paradox. He believed that abandoning spoken words entirely actually elevates our ability to connect with each other. By just stripping away all the noise, silence genuinely becomes the loudest, most powerful tool in the room. It forces everyone, the performer and the viewer, to be incredibly present. Over in India, this practice is called mukha minya. And at its core, mime is simply a form of acting that strictly uses zero words or sound to communicate. The performer, or, the mime, doesn't just do a few hand gestures. They're literally creating a visible reality out of thin air. They're building walls, stretching out ropes, and holding physical objects that just aren't there, relying entirely on absolute physical mastery.
Moving right along to Section 2, the MIME's toolkit.
So, to actually pull this off, you've got to master some fundamental building blocks. Since you don't have a voice, your facial expression has to carry the total weight of your emotional reaction. Then there's energy, that pure intensity and focus behind every single little action. You also have to be interactive, meaning you're actively pulling the audience in so the illusion feels real to them too. Body language covers your specific postures and hand gestures. And finally, pantomime, which often brings in multiple actors, maybe some music, and leans heavily into comedy. Without nailing these tools, the whole invisible world just kind of shatters.
Which brings us to Section 3, the rules of illusion.
Listen, if you take literally one thing away from this explainer, make it this absolute golden rule. You must never transform your body into the object itself. You always have to act as if you are using the object. For example, if you want to show a pair of scissors, you definitely don't make a snipping motion with your two index fingers like your fingers actually are the blades. Instead, you position your hand exactly as it would look if it were gripping the physical handle of the scissors.
Think about when you're a kid making a toy gun with your hand, just pointing your thumb and index finger. In MIME, that's actually totally incorrect because you've essentially become the weapon. Instead, you gotta curve your hand as if you're gripping an imaginary handle with your finger on an invisible trigger. And the logic here makes total sense. If you become the object for small things, how on earth do you show something massive like a car or a refrigerator? You obviously can't turn your body into a fridge. You have to interact with its invisible handles and doors.
But it doesn't stop at just gripping things. You have to establish its physical reality in space. You need to clearly define its exact size and shape. And honestly, more importantly, you must establish its weight. To make the illusion actually believable, your body's physical exertion has to match the item perfectly. Think about it. Lifting a helium balloon takes entirely different muscle tension than dragging a heavy iron box across a room. If a mime is pulling an imaginary safe across the floor but looks like they're barely breaking a sweat, no one in the audience is going to buy it. The weight only exists in the visible strain of the performer's muscles.
Okay, on to Section 4, elements of performance. Every great silent performance really leans on a specific three-part structure to connect with the crowd. We're talking imagination, exaggeration, and costume and makeup. Let's break down why each of these is so crucial. First up, imagination. And this isn't just a solo act for the performer. It's actually a massive, collaborative give and take. The performer suggests a reality, sure, but the audience has to actively participate to see that invisible environment. If the audience doesn't buy in and mentally construct that world alongside the mime, the whole show just falls flat. It's a shared mental exercise.
Then we've got exaggeration. Because there are zero words to explain what's happening, actions have to be way larger than life. This connects directly to the Natyadharmi style of acting, which leans heavily on dramatic, stylized techniques. If a mime is playing with a ball, their movements have to be grand, deliberate, and even slightly slower than reality. That's the only way to make sure the person sitting in the very back row perfectly understands the story.
And finally, costume and makeup. We all know the classic mime look, right? The stark white face, the sharp black and red accents. But this isn't just about playing a specific character. It's highly functional. That white base with the contrasting features makes sure that every tiny flutter of an eyelid or an exaggerated furrow of the brow instantly pops under those bright stage lights. The clothing is kept super neutral because the performer is basically a blank canvas, ready to become literally anyone at a moment's notice.
Finally, we hit Section 5, a universal language.
Let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture. Beyond just the cool techniques, why does this matter globally? Well, because there's no spoken dialogue. Mime totally bypasses the language barrier. A beautiful, silent performance put together in a small village on one side of the globe is instantly understood and emotionally felt by an audience anywhere else in the world. Basic human emotions like joy, grief, frustration, surprise, they're entirely universal.
But it goes so much deeper than just bridging language gaps. Think about those classic uniform black and white clothes and the neutral makeup. They do something incredible. They strip away societal judgments. Out in the real world, we tend to stereotype people the second we see what they're wearing. In mime, those markers of social class, occupation, or background just vanish. It even breaks down gender stereotypes completely. A performer of any gender can convincingly mime doing heavy industrial labor without the audience's preconceived biases getting in the way. It is literally the great equalizer of storytelling.
And beyond just pure entertainment, this medium is actually a remarkably powerful therapeutic tool. For folks who have gone through severe trauma, finding the right words can be terrifying or, honestly, sometimes impossible. Mime gives them a safe, completely silent space to physicalize and process those heavy experiences. They get to share their story and release their pain without any fear of being judged, all through the incredible safety of silent expression. So, we've seen how ditching words entirely can build whole new invisible worlds, shatter societal barriers, and honestly, even heal minds. It's a pretty great reminder that sometimes the most profound things we say require absolutely no sound at all. I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. In a world filled with constant, non-stop noise, how will you use silence to speak louder today? Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.